Hey everyone, what's up? It's about 8:02 on this Wednesday, the 25th of April. And, you know, there was a, there's a, oh, there was a question, you know, well not, well basically there was a question, and I know he's going to be surprised that I mentioned this, that Patrick Butler, Stco here on YouTube, presided over on at certain forums. You know, he was asking technically, what were your top, I don't know, it was top 10 or top 5 episodes. I'm guessing top 5 because you only have like 13 episodes. You know what I mean? So, a season. You know, so he was wondering exactly from a fan's perspective, what was the top 5? Well, if I'm going to do this, I want to kind of throw out the gauntlet to anybody here on the YT if they want to do it. James, Sullivan, Jamie Tood, anybody else that's a Sonic fan. I want to throw that gauntlet out to you guys. And anybody that's going to watch this on Facebook and on Twitter, MJ Knight, whatever, if you guys want to throw in your 2 cents. But, you know, he wants to know, or was asking, exactly what were your favorite episodes? You know, like which ones stood out during both seasons? Well, if we go by seasons, we should start with season 1, of course. And my number 5 on there would have to be Heads or Tails. Yeah. The reason it's that is because, one, it's the pilot, of course, and it's a very unique pilot. You know, usually, sometimes, the majority of the time, the pilot has the characters as you're going to see them anyway. But this followed in a category that some primetime shows have done in the past, and some animated ones have done in the past too. Basically, it presented to you what the characters were originally going to look like in the original plans. Basically, you had your Pink Sally with the hair style, you had Bunny with the white muzzle, you had the purple rotor. You know, basically what you saw in the comic books back in the day. Rotor being the only one that's still kind of purplish. Anyway, I liked it because it kind of gave you the idea that this was intended to be a kind of, not just a very, as it turned out to be, dark, dramatic, action-packed show, which was a huge success, one of my personal favorites, but also showed you it was supposed to have a bit of comedy in it. According to some people, Adventures was supposed to be like a prelude to SatAM. We don't really know that or not. And it might be true, who knows. But anyway, apparently SatAM, the original concept for it, was supposed to make it a little bit more funny than what it was. And I guess they kind of improved on that in the following season. I mean, yeah, they did have the humorous moments and stuff. There's no doubt about it. But I think, in a sense, it definitely showed that this was what it was supposed to be. And I liked it because it had everything that, if you read back in the comics in the early days, what the comic was about. You know, it was funny. It had all the characters, like the Buzz Bombers, you name it, the white-gray swap bots, whatever. It was just a tremendous feel. A tremendous nostalgic feel. And I remember my, I remember watching, honestly, waking up one day. I was still living in California. I remember waking up, turning this on, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to watch a regular episode of Sonic the Hedgehog. And then I see how it's being presented, and I'm thinking, what in the world? And then as soon as I saw, like I said, I saw the swap bots designed the way they were, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is the comic book brought to life. And I thought maybe it was probably just a special episode, that's it. It wasn't until later on, like everybody else, I found out that it was the pilot episode. What was the show intended to be like, kind of deal. Now, That's why I like it. That's why it's in the top 5 there, the first season. Number 4. Number 4 is Sonic and the Secret Scrolls. I know some people will have their doubts about it, but I thought Sonic and the Secret Scrolls was pretty cool. Because despite how people look at it and it's presented, to me it's always been like the season finale for season 1. That's how I've looked at it. I mean, the way it was set up and everything. Now, some people will say that it was kind of, it had, will criticize the episode. I mean, some people go on the forums, they have criticized it. They have said there are certain flaws with it. And yes, that is true. I mean, when you think about it, Sonic basically, and a lot of people actually were surprised that when I mentioned this, Sonic actually proved to be the more smart one of the bunch. Sally wanted to go to this place called Magna, get the Secret Scrolls, and the only way you could go is by flying, because it was high in the mountains. But here was the thing. Sonic knew, just because of the fact that he's always leading the mission, or always being the main focus of the mission against Robotnik, knew that if they attempt that, no matter how they do it, either it's at night, whether it's down below, whatever, Robotnik was going to spot them. He was going to find them. And what do you know? Towards the end, after they obtain the Secret Scrolls, what happens? Boom! He finds them. Now, some people have criticized that too. They have said, look, if it would have been an illusion of Robotnik, entrapping them, and meeting them up as like the final challenge, then hey, that would have been acceptable. But nope, it's the real deal. It's the real deal. And again, this is what people find flawed about it. But to me, yeah, it basically, like I said, made Sonic look like the smart one there, because he's like, because I like how it's kind of like it's kind of a karma kind of like thing. You have Sonic going back with them after they do defeat Robotnik and think he's dead, which he's not, but he ends up flying the Freedom Stormer back with them, doing it the way he would do it. And I guess in a sense, I would have loved, this is what I would have loved to see. I would have loved to see an extra scene where Sonic's like, where everybody's just like holding their stomachs when they come back down, and Sonic's like, hey, that's what you guys get for not listening to me. I told you he was going to find you. You don't listen. And I would love to see Sally go like, you know what, Sonic? Kind of compose herself a little bit, go like, get her faculties together, go, you know what, Sonic, you're right. Maybe it wasn't a good idea. Maybe flying something like that is not a good idea. So, to me, I would have loved to have seen that. But that's why I like Sonic and Secret Scrolls, because it took them outside of those surrounding areas. It took them to a different location. And usually with season finales, you usually end up seeing the characters in different locations. You know what I mean? Now, as far as number 3 goes, I have to go with Super Sonic. No doubt about it. Super Sonic to me was a great, I guess you could say, intro. Because it did kind of have a little bit of comedy at first. I mean, you're thinking to yourself, how in the world are they going to fix a water wheel with a big old wrench? And here you see Sally walking with this wrench. And it's bigger than her. And then I like how Bunny, she's looking into getting that little pocket thing she has around her belt. And she's like, ah! So they did have the moments. But I liked it because the writing was so good. I mean, it was the first episode shown during this first season in many aspects, if you think about it. But I liked it because of the fact that when Robotnik gained control of Lazar's computer, his crystal, and he used it to control Bunny and Sally, it made you think, honestly, Bunny and Sally were going to remain evil for the rest of the season, and Sonic was going to go have to rescue them eventually. But that wasn't the case. He did restore him within that episode, but it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see that. And in a sense, to me, excuse me for a second. And in a sense, to me, kind of establish, despite how we feel about it, the fact that Bunny, Sally, and Sonic were the leaders of the group. That they were the main cast of characters that would be going on missions together, and that was cool. It was really cool. So I liked it. It really set the tone, if you will. It showed that it does have a bit of comedy. Like when Sally's going to get this extra part from Nicole because Nicole's malfunctioning, and a bot sees her, and she's like, "Oh, hi, I was just leaving." And the bot sets off the alarm. She's like, "Ah!" Her hair just sticks up. That's kind of cool to see that. And like I said, it does set the tone that says, yes, we have humor, but we're mostly action-packed, dramatic, dark, whatever. I thought that was good. Number two to me would have to be Sonic and Sally. Well, not Sonic and Sally, Ultrasonic, actually. Sonic and Sally, I think you know where that's going to go. But Ultrasonic to me was really good because it had a few things going for it. And I'll let you know in a minute. Let me pause this for a second. I'm back, ladies and gentlemen. Had to go take care of something. But anyway, to me, Ultrasonic was really a really good episode because it did kind of introduce us to Sonic's Uncle Chuck and let us know that besides Sally in the episode Sonic Boom, that even Sonic is personally affected by what Robotnik has done. And to me, it really established Sonic basically as a character you can really relate to on a personal level. I also like it because it's the first time that if you take Uncle Chuck out of the equation on a mission when they split up into teams, it's actually the first time that, like I said, if you take Uncle Chuck out of the equation, even though he was part of their team while he was temporarily freed, his mind, that is, you had Bunny and Sonic teaming together. And despite the fact that, how you feel about them, and despite the fact that in the comics Bunny is in love and married to Antoine and everything, this is always a team up back then. This is way back before that Antoine Bunny thing was even considered. Back then that you've been wanting to see, because both, besides Sally, were popular characters, but both were the two most powerful characters they had. I mean, you had Sonic with his speed, you had Bunny with his strength. So that was pretty cool to see that. And I like the fact that Sally got teamed up with Rhoda and Antoine, because basically here you had two of the smartest together, the leader with the plan, and you had the mechanic, the inventor, and of course you had the cowardly guy, Antoine. But it was pretty cool either way. And to see that because it showed that they could work in different teams besides always being Sonic and Sally, which is a very popular pairing. There's no doubt about that. But it also showed that Sonic can team and work with anybody else. In fact, if you look at the comic books later on down the line, they show that on several occasions. Heck, most recently, I guess you want to say most recently, about 12 months ago, 13 months ago, they showed it. If you will, 13, 12 months ago, they showed it with Bunny and Sonic teamed up together, as well as they showed it way back before that in the 80s or 70s deals with the characters. So it showed you that these characters could team up, because to me, people love Sonic and Sally being together as a team and as a couple, but when it came to other team-ups, they always liked seeing Sonic teaming up with Bunny because, to me, it's like they understood. It's like they knew, hey, we're the most powerful two in the group. We should, we're the most two powerful groups in the groups. We should go for it. And you got to realize that, we all know Sally's popular. There's no doubt. You can take a look at her fan base and everything. Dan Dryden even acknowledged that. Even acknowledged that in his review of 230. But basically, Bunny, she's not far behind. I mean, she's almost like right there, just an inch away or so from being as popular as Sally, if not on that same level. That's why they liked seeing her team with Sonic, and that's why I like that aspect about this episode. Another uniqueness about it was, of course, it was a bittersweet victory. Yeah, they stopped Robotnik from mining a crystal and everything, but they lost Uncle Chuck back to Robotnik's control at the end. So it was a bittersweet victory, and it was the first time we'd seen Sonic cry. Which, I guess, when you look later on in the second season, Sega didn't like. But that's why I like it number two. Number one, Well, of course, can't go wrong with Sonic and Sally. And Sonic and Sally was just, it's just a great episode. I mean, Ben Hurst, one of the first episodes he wrote, definitely proved he was a great writer and really, really, showed the innocence of a child. That, and that children, like Tails was being portrayed, because Tails had a huge role in this. It shows that they know certain people that take care of them better than anyone. They know a person. They know the difference between fake and real. And it was no doubt right off the bat that he kind of had his suspicions as to the fact that the Sally that was in Knothole was not the real Sally. And I like that aspect that it was actually Tails and not anybody else that saw this. And then finally, when they went on that mission, it just dawned on them, it finally did dawn on them that, oh my God, this isn't Sally. Because when they tried to do this, the fake Sally couldn't do it. So I love that aspect. I love it. So, and then of course you have the little, and of course instead of focusing on Sonic and Tails' relationship, it focuses on Sally and Tails. So mainly not just Sonic and Tails, but mostly Sally's relationship with Tails and Tails' relationship with her. So that was pretty cool, and I loved that concept. I loved how they did it. And that's all I'm going to say about the top 5 for Season 1. I'm going to let this charge, and I'm going to continue on with top 5 of Season 2. Peace out. Okay, everybody, I'm back. Let me move this out of the way. I hate when my camera does that. Definitely got to look on improving the camera deal someday. But anyway, I want to continue on with my top 5 of the Sonic SatAM episodes. Now, I originally ended with my top 5 of the first season. Now I'm here with my top 5 of the second season. And the second season is considered by many to be the best one. Yeah, it's kind of hard to choose between both seasons. I mean, we all look at the first season as an introductory season as to why they do this. It really had a bit of a loose continuity, but it had a bit of continuity, but it was more of an introductory deal. The second season is when it really started to take off. Basically, here's the deal. This was the season that was going to eventually set up a new season, as we all know. Continue on into a new season, but I'll get into that later. But let's take a look at my top 5. And it's kind of hard to choose, but here we go. I definitely have to say that, it's kind of hard to choose. But I have to say definitely number 5 has to be Cry of the Wolf. There's no doubt about that. Cry of the Wolf is a tremendous episode. Basically you have this new group of freedom. Basically, this starts the beginning. This is basically the essentially, when you look at Doomsday Project, the whole final 4 episodes. And like I've mentioned before, if you piece it together like a movie, and there's people here on YouTube you could talk to who have a copy of the movie I sent them, even Zero Nazarak. And basically, Cry of the Wolf is kind of like the first, I guess you could say the first 22 minutes of the film. Basically, we get introduced to a new group of freedom fighters because of the freedom fighter list given to Sally by her father. And this new group kind of gives us an idea. One of the characters that we're introduced to is Lupe, who's gone on to be a very popular character within the families, believe me. And basically, she kind of has a similar situation as the others. Her father was captured, most of her clan was roboticized and stuff like that. So it's really interesting to see how the aspect, to see also at the beginning, when we just see them attacking a pod, it shows you that the freedom fighters, the ones we know, are not the only ones capable of fighting off Robotnik and defeating him. So I love how that works out. And you know what? I think we did get kind of a hint of that in the episode No Brainer. Basically, Robotnik's telling Snively he's leaving to go eradicate this resistance group up north, or something like that. So that probably gave you a hint as to what was going on, because we see in a flashback exactly what happened, so it kind of gives you an idea. Anyways, I thought it was a unique episode, and again, it began the road towards Doomsday. I mean, really, yeah, one of the episodes I'm going to talk about later on really started the road to Doomsday, because it gave us a hint and everything. But this was the road taken. This was the road that really blasted us off towards that finale. I mean, it was tremendous. I love the story aspect. I love the fact that we got new characters introduced, and especially, like I said, a character that fans have gone on to popularize because they like the character in Lupe. I mean, Lupe has appeared probably more times than any other SatAM character or SatAM created character in history. Probably more than others. And that's why Cry the Wolf's number 5 on this list. So yeah, that's why Cry the Wolf's number 5. I mean, I love how it introduced us to new characters, and one that's gone on to appear, like I said, in more, make more appearances in the comic than any other SatAM created character. That's pretty cool. Number 4. Well, number 4 is kind of different. Number 4, believe it or not, and like I said, it's kind of hard to choose between episodes, but number 4 I got to go with is Spy Hog. Yeah, I know some people might say, well, what are you talking about? Well, to me, Spy Hog was a unique episode in its own aspect, because it was the lead-in to the finale. And I love the fact that at the beginning of the season, we knew, after Sonic had freed his uncle, that, you know, and his uncle had decided, you know what, instead of going back to Knothole, I'm going to wait till everything's settled, the war's won, Robotnik's defeated, I'm going to wait, and to our advantage, I'm going to stay here and be a spy for you guys and let you in on what's going to happen. Now, the uniqueness about this is they didn't really touch on it until later on. I mean, it's like you kind of knew going into certain episodes later on in the season that he eventually would find out, like, what's going on, why is everything backfiring, until finally Spy Hog came around, and there was a situation, and he finally just said, you know, he just went like, you know, something's just not right. Why are they always foiling us? Why are they always ahead of us? And then I think it was during the whole, you know, his tankers going off and doing something, they say, call those guys back, they're being distracted. And then it finally just hit them that they have to have a spy in the networks. Well, they tried to figure out exactly who this spy would be. And at first they thought it was Antoine, because the reason they thought it was Antoine, you know, had quite a role in this. Basically what happened, because they had the information they needed from Uncle Chuck, they used these kind of like these magnet vests in there. And I love Bunny's line in there. Bunny is, you know, she just got a great line. She said, because these metal vests, what they do is they allow them to catch, you know, kind of allow them to stick onto the bottom of one of the tankers and drain the fuel out. And I love Bunny's reaction. She goes up there and she basically hooks on there with the magnet. She's like, you know, this something like, wow, this makes me feel attractive, kind of deal. I mean, I love that line. That was pretty cool. But the reason, again, like I say, Antoine kind of had a role in this, if you will. The reason Antoine had a bit of a role in this was due to the fact that Sally's vest, one of the wires on Sally's vest had come loose and basically malfunctioned, causing her to slip. So basically she was holding on to a sidebar or a handle with her hand here, and her feet are just exposed. And Antoine, ironically, is right there next to her. He grabs her by her vest, not her blue vest, but by her magnet vest, holds her up long enough out of sight to the point that she could hook the wire back in and get remagnetized onto the bottom of the tanker. Now you might say, well, what does this have to do with Antoine being accused at first as a spy? Well, here's what comes into play. Antoine finally got what he had been wanting to get from Sally for, ever since the first season. He finally got a little affection from her. In other words, he got a kiss from her. And I love how Sonic, he's basically, here's Antoine. As we all know him, he's boasting about what he did, and Sonic's right there at the Golden Ring Lagoon or something like that, the Gold Ring Lagoon, and he's like, and Sonic's not believing it. He's like, yeah, right, whatever. Like, you couldn't do that in a million years. And then here comes Sally to basically kind of confirm what Antoine had done by not only acknowledging it, but by kissing him on the cheek and causing him to faint. So yeah, he finally got what he wanted from her, but this eventually went, of course, if you want to look at another example, kind of went to his head, if you will, just like, kind of went to his head. The kiss went to his head and basically made his ego grow 10 times more, if you know what I mean. So what happened was, Antoine decided, you know what? Because this is when they found out that Robotnik was onto the bug, one of Uncle Chuck's spy bugs. And basically, Antoine decided, you know what? Rotor, you stay here, I'll go take care of it. So he gets Dulcie to take him to Robotropolis so he could try to warn Uncle Chuck. Doesn't find him at his headquarters, and then decides, you know what, I'm just going to continue looking elsewhere, maybe I'll find him and tell him. But instead what happens is he ends up getting captured as soon as he bumps right into Chuck. He falls through the vent and gets captured, and that's why he's accused of being the spy. And then, of course, the most famous line comes out of there, one of the most infamous scenes come out of there. Basically, Snively is torturing Antoine, because he looked up information on Antoine, figuring, okay, what can I do to break this guy? And he figures out exactly what he could do, and he does everything. He uses all these French dishes, snails, and stuff like that. Basically, the escargot deal. And then as soon as he shows him what it looks like to be butter, it's instead margarine, and that basically draws, and then showing him like the final ingredient, which could be butter, instead it's margarine, and oh man, that is just so funny. I mean, it makes Antoine freak out, wig out until Sonic is able to save him, because Antoine's about to spiel. So basically, he gets him out of there. They meet up at the junk heap where Dulcie is, and ironically, Sonic and Sally show up. And, not Sonic and Sally, but Sally and Bunny. I'm so sorry, that's my bad. But Sally and Bunny show up. And as soon as Sonic brings Antoine into the picture, Sally's asking what happened, and Sonic's got this look on his face like, I'll tell you later. Like, again, I could just imagine if they wanted to add a scene to that, what he would have told her. Like, oh yeah, you want to know what happened with Antoine? After they took care of the mission and everything, I would love to see the scene where it'd be like, oh yeah, you want to know what happened with Antoine? Yeah, what happened? That kiss you gave him went straight to his head. This is why we warned you never to kiss Antoine. If you ever do, it goes straight to his head. Or something like that. I would love to have seen that. I would have loved to have seen Sonic telling Sally, hey, you know how we warned you about not showing any affection towards Antoine or kissing him? There's your answer. It went straight to his head. So I like that. I kind of like that acknowledgement there. So, well, that didn't happen, but you kind of get, he didn't really say that, but that's a scene. That's a scene that I would have loved seeing animated, because you could just see the expression on Sonic's face that, that it's not just Antoine, he was kind of like disappointed in it. He kind of looked at Sally like, yeah, I'll tell you later. Like basically, you know exactly what happened. But getting back on topic here, basically what happens after that is Chuck is finally discovered as the spy, and Robotnik tries to reprogram him again and try to get the location of Knothole. That doesn't work, and instead of going back That doesn't work because Sonic is able to eventually get his uncle out of there on time. But instead of going back with them to Knothole, he says, you know what? He basically tells Sonic, Sally, and Bunny, you know what? I was expecting this. So I had a backup. And of course, ironically, he has another headquarters, another secret headquarters. And Sonic, he looks at his uncle like, well, wait a minute, this is cool and everything, but how are you going to get around when Robotnik knows you're the spy? And again, Uncle Chuck, proving he's kind of the genius that he is able to temporarily fool the other three by coming out in a kind of like a bot outfit. By, coming out in a bot outfit and fooling them by saying, hey, you should have seen your faces. And, and they're all acknowledging, yeah, you got us, but hey, we'd rather have you back in Knothole. And, even Sally's like saying, hey, yeah, there's a lot you could do there. But of course, Uncle Chuck's like, look, until Robotnik's defeated, I can't go. I can't go until Robotnik's defeated, then I'll come back. So, it ends with, them flying off, not, kind of bittersweet and everything, and just tears coming out of Uncle Chuck's eyes, and then it says in the bottom, next week, Doomsday. And that was one thing that really caught me, that was the first time anything had been acknowledged as being like, next week's going to happen, instead of saying, to be continued. Or hearing a voiceover saying, next week, Doomsday. Instead it was kind of bittersweet, but it was a good episode. Because it got a lot of things done. It finally has certain things happen that people have been wanting to see happen, and knew it was going to happen, but it was pretty good. All right, number three. Number three, The Void. I mean, how can you not go wrong with this one? The Void is an extra special episode because basically it's kind of like a story. If you look at things like from a story's perspective, like a storybook or a novel, basically The Void was the prelude. That's right, it was the prelude to the Doomsday Saga, to the final 4 episodes. It was the prelude. Now, some people might say, well, wasn't Game Guy the prelude? No, Game Guy was kind of like the, I guess you could say the overture or something like that or whatever when he acknowledges the list. But we don't know exactly how the list, at that time, we don't know how the list is going to come into play. We don't know. And I apologize for the bird in the background. We don't know how the list is going to, come into play. Or anything, so. We don't know how the list is going to come into play. But anyway, what happens though is she gets the list, Sally does get the list in this episode. So here's the deal. This episode, like I say, was a prelude to the Doomsday Saga, as well as I guess a bit of a prelude to what would have been the 3rd season. Basically, we get introduced to a character named Axis Nagus. Now, he's not known as Axis in the show, just as Nagus. And basically, we get a background and find out that it was supposed to be Nagus, from what I can understand, that was supposed to be in control of Robotropolis and not Robotnik. But because Robotnik betrayed him and locked him in the void, and had all retrieval programs disabled, Nagus now wants to basically try to get out of there. So after he's finally mastered how to open up the void, wants to get out of there so he can get his revenge. So he figures the only way he can get out of there is probably with Sonic's speed, because Sonic is, the fastest thing alive. So what happens is he basically what he does is, because he couldn't get Sonic at the beginning of the episode, he basically uses a kind of a hologram. He basically, I guess, finds out exactly, because obviously he could see what's going on. Because after this, he kind of sees pictures of he sees a picture of Sonic, and then he sees Sally, and then he kind of gets an idea, okay, this is how I can get Sonic here. So basically, he creates this illusion of this ring of this ring that's supposed to belong to this group of giants that Sally's studying on. And what happens is this ring actually happens to turn out to be a trap because it captures Sally and Bunny and takes them into the void. And then basically, you know, he uses some kind of control to get Sally to tell him exactly where Sonic went and why he wasn't there with them when the trap was sprung. And because, you know, she doesn't tell him at first, he controls her and basically has her say it and says he went to Robotropolis. And I don't know why she said this at first. She says, you know, when he gets her to talk, basically by I guess he kind of controlling what she's, kind of controlling her mind or something like that. Yeah, she's like, Sonic's leader of the Naruto Freedom Fighters. You know, it's like she's acknowledging he is the leader, but so is she. So that's kind of unusual. But anyway. And then what he does is he shows him in a block of ice, a block of crystal, saying, okay, you know, I know Sonic's going to be here soon because he's got to rescue her. And that's pretty cool. And this is also a great episode because it develops a relationship between Sonic and Nicole. Now, not a lovey-dovey relationship, but a friendship relationship. Because it helps Nicole to evolve. And it basically shows that Sonic finally kind of indicates the frustration Sonic has with Nicole by telling her, hey, talk in English. Because Sonic doesn't understand the techno babble that comes out of her. And at the end of the episode, it's like, Nicole's kind of had it, and basically at the end of the episode, Nicole programs it into herself now to talk one way to Sally, to the way Sally knows how she talks, to Sonic's, and then when Sonic she's around Sonic, she basically will be able to talk in a language that Sonic can understand. So that's pretty cool. I like that aspect, how they develop her relationship with Sonic and how her friendship or relationship with Sonic, and how to the point that now she's programmed it into her system, like, okay, when I'm with Sally, I talk the way I talk to Sally normally the way I would talk to her, but when I'm with Sonic, I'll talk in a language he'll understand. So that's pretty cool. And Sonic does eventually go into the void, and does rescue his friends, but at the same time they discover that this is exactly where the king has disappeared to. This is where he was. Because they notice that Ari's in there. Yes, Ari from Game Guy does return, and he does make it back into the world. But we also find out that this is where the king is. Now the king that Sonic takes out, because he does agree to help him, is actually Naugus in disguise. Not the real one, that Sally, and it's an emotional point for Sally, not just with the fake one, but with the real one as well, because she now knows where her father is. So anyway, Naugus is able to get out thanks to Sonic, and he basically gets Robotnik to come out of the ship. And I think in a way you can almost see right there that Robotnik's like, look, Naugus, I didn't mean to betray you. So basically acknowledging that Naugus is still his superior. So if it wasn't for the little catch-22 that happened, basically Robotnik would have been like, okay, Naugus, you want control, I'll give it to you. You're the boss. Anyway, so that kind of happened there. But unfortunately, they kind of had to throw in a little catch-22 with Naugus and even the king, who eventually came out with Sally, Bunny, and Ari being crystallized because they spent too long in the void. So, and that's an emotional moment right there, because Sally, you know, she just has her father back, and you feel for her. You feel for Sally here, because she just got her father back, and now she's got to let him go again because he can't survive in the world anymore. Or because he's been too long, he's been in the void for over 15 years. Well, not 15 years, but 10 years. He's been in there for about 10, 11 years. But before he goes, he gives her the Freedom Fighters list. So basically, you know, that's you kind of feel for Sally there, but Sonic is able to kind of tell her later on, it's going to be okay, Naugus is going to figure a way out of there, we got Ari, so you got to look at the positive things. And Sally does agree. And as they're walking down, and she's acknowledging that he's right, and he's, you know, they're kind of doing a little fun banter back and forth. And then he mentions Nicole, because You know, he says, like, I'm always right. She's like, no, you're not. Oh, yeah, I am. Ask Nicole. And then Nicole starts talking in a way that Sally kind of catches Sally off guard, like, you know, like she says, like, he's cool, Sal, way back. And then Sally's like, what did you do to her? So, you know, it's really fun. It was a good episode, and that's why, to me, it's number 3 on my countdown. Number 2, no doubt, has to be Blast of the Past. Both episodes, the entire 44-minute miniseries. The only flaw I have with this is it should have been the one that started the second season, but it wasn't. Instead, they had a crunch right in the middle. I like how, you know, it's Dulcie that suggested they do this. And at first, Sally's like, you know, it's a myth. It's not real. Eventually, she finds out it is. Eventually, she finds out it is. And what's ironic, a lot of people will look at is, okay, if she says it's a myth, it's not real, then how does she know how to use these time stones? Well, just because someone looks at it as a myth and thinks it's nothing but a legend and a myth, doesn't mean they don't look up on it just to see if maybe, perhaps, there's a chance. So basically, the thing is they use the time stones to go back in time. And why do they want to go back in time? Well, what happens is 2 freedom fighters, you know, they're kind of like, you know, okay, let's put in some extras in here so they can get killed off, roboticized kind of deal. Get roboticized even though they succeed in a mission. And what happens is that Sonic's like, you know what, we should have just defeated Robotnik before he took over. And Sally's like, we were only 5, how were we supposed to do that? So, again, like I said, Dulcie suggests they use the time stones, and that's what they do. They go back in time, hoping to have a whole week to be able to dismantle any of Robotnik's plans, with the possibility of going back in time, going back to the future, and everything's the way it should have been. But instead, what happens is because Sonic's obsession with chili dogs gets in the way, they do end up in that time, in the right time and everything, but it's not a whole week they have. It's less than like 8 to 12 hours. So basically the format, basically what happens is they do fail in trying to prevent Robotnik from taking over. Sally does finally see her father for the first time, and he acknowledges that it is her, but at first he doesn't know that. Sonic is able to acknowledge to his Uncle Chuck, hey, it's us. It is us. You know, from the future. By, I guess, showing him Nicole or something. And what's ironic is we get the revelation that it was Uncle Chuck, not Robotnik, that had created the roboticizer. And Uncle Chuck's intention was to have it allow older people to live longer, or to help the wounded, depending on how you look at the origin. So anyway, what happens is that, again, the mission fails. And basically they have to try to get out of there by not only, they have to basically try to get back to their time. But what happens is they got a few things they got to take care of first. One, they got to save the younger selves from being roboticized. And they got to save Knothole from being destroyed. So basically what happens is they end up causing a huge clusterfuck almost, if you will. And eventually they do succeed in saving their younger selves and saving Knothole, and kind of messing with the space-time continuum a little bit when Sally has Rosie, the nanny, promise to stay in Knothole because Rosie, for some odd reason, knows it's Sally right off the bat. So she does make a promise to stay in Knothole. And when Sonic's asking her, well, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? She's trying to give the answer, and I'm guessing it's because Rosie's like the only family she would have left. You know what I'm saying? And perhaps also it would help keeping Sonic in line. I don't know. But I thought it was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool. So overall, they do kind of have a bittersweet victory, if you will. They get the plans to the original roboticizer, so that I think that would have been used later on in the 3rd season. But overall, a tremendous 2-part miniseries, mini-movie, if you will, which I still believe, as good as it was, should have started off the 2nd season. Now we get into number 1, the Doomsday Project. And what more can be said about this episode? I mean, even Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, has indicated it was good. I mean, it had everything that you wanted. Basically, Robotnik is able to fool because I guess he still knows Uncle Chuck's still around as a spy, is able to fool the freedom fighters into thinking he's going to launch a week later, but instead he launches early. And this is basically to get the freedom fighters and their allies to come to the Doomsday Project so he can capture them. Overall, it's just an episode full of everything. I mean, basically you have Robotnik capture Sonic temporarily, put him in a roboticizer that he built for Sonic, which makes you think, oh great, this whole Doomsday Project thing wasn't just a way for him to take over the world, but a way for him to capture Sonic, basically another Sonic trap. But overall, it is just a tremendous, tremendous episode. I mean, the animation, the story, everything just flows perfectly. And Sonic does escape, but, you know, kind of has to inform him that, yeah, I tried to blow up the Doomsday thing, the brain of the Doomsday Project, but it's covered by this diamond glass stuff. So basically, thanks to Uncle Chuck, they find out, okay, the only way we could do this is to deep Power Stones. But instead of putting them the other way, which could cause total destruction and even destroy them in the process, they put it around the other way for incredible power. And what's ironic about this, and what's great about this, is the incredible power transfers Sonic's power of speed. And again, if you look later on at the end, towards the end of the episode, a little bit of his personality into Sally. So basically Sally, for the temporary time, has Sonic speed as well, and they use this power to destroy the Doomsday Project. And I like how after they destroy him, they do the high five. Sally wants to see what a kiss can do, and I'm thinking, whoa, this is something Sonic normally would try to attempt, not Sally. So again, that's what a bit of the personality goes into it. It comes into play, if you will. But I thought it was great that they allowed Sally for that one moment to experience what power rings are like, as she puts it, what power rings feel like, and allow her to have that temporary, you know, control of Sonic speed as well. So I thought it was pretty cool. Now the only negative aspect about this was ended on a cliffhanger. We didn't get the third season as we thought we were going to get, because the cliffhanger was Snively was going to take over, and the red eyes we saw at the end behind him were not metal, they were not Knuckles, they were Nagas. Even though they were Hedgehog-like, they were Nagas. So that kind of was the cliffhanger that we were left off on. So we never really got that resolved because it couldn't, due to certain situations. In other words, the new people that took over at ABC didn't want to acknowledge it in any way, didn't want to have nothing to do with it. And basically also some other rumor is going around that Sega may have had something to do with it as well. But it was a great episode, there's no doubt about it, I liked it. And another aspect about it is also that big flash of light that happened during the destruction of the Doomsday Project opened up the void a little bit for Nagas to pull Robotnik in, because the initial plan was for Nagas to take over as the new villain in the third season with Robotnik as his lackey. But you can read more about that if you go to SatAMSonic.com or SaturdayMorningSonic.com, and you get your information there. Overall, a tremendous, tremendous episode. Definitely can't say any more about it. And that is why Doomsday Project is #1 on the top 5 episodes of Season 2. So, comment down below. Tell me what you think. Respond if you like. I'm going to let this battery charge. Peace out. Hey everyone, what's up?